Tonight, defunding the police.
You know, that makes absolutely no sense.
The push for reform in the wake of the death of George Floyd and nationwide protests.
And we're going to create a fear-free future.
This as Democrats in Congress unveil a sweeping police reform bill.
We cannot settle for anything less than transformative structural change.
And join us.
Dr. King reminded us more than once that you can't drive out darkness with darkness, you drive out darkness with light.
Inside the Vice President's listening session with Black church leaders. Plus, marking 76 years since D-Day in a lonely commemoration in Normandy amid the pandemic. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Growing calls tonight to defund law enforcement. Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Jenna Browder. In cities across the country this weekend, we saw protesters demanding change after the death of George Floyd. And now in Minneapolis, the city council says it will dismantle the police department with hopes other communities follow suit. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us from the North Lawn with the president's response. Ben?
Well, Jenna, President Trump said he is appalled by the defund police movement, but organizers say they don't plan to stop rallying until police are held accountable. Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany said today in the briefing room moments ago that her boss recognizes the injustice done to George Floyd, but believes the nation's law enforcement are, quote, the best in the world and good people.
It is extraordinary. And when you think the left has gone far, and they couldn't possibly go farther, because we all remember the defund ICE movement. They want to defund immigration and custom enforcement, and now they want to defund the police. This is extraordinary. This is rolling back the protective layers that protect Americans in their homes and in their places of business.
Now, protesters are asking to redirect the money from the police departments to other programs and are even calling for banning police chokeholds and revamping law enforcement training programs. Jenna?
Again, reopening after getting hit very hard by the coronavirus pandemic. You, of course, were in today's briefing. What is the latest on the pandemic front from the White House?
Jenna, it's been exactly 100 days since the city's first confirmed case. The Big Apple was locked down for roughly 3 months, and as they reopen, they are also preparing for the possibility of a second wave. I asked McEnany if the country could see a Phase 4 relief bill anytime soon. Sticking with the economy, New York City began reopening its economy today after a very long lockdown. Does President Trump think we need another coronavirus stimulus package? And if so, what would he want to see in it before he signs it?
Yeah, he's remained open to a Phase 4. There was some discussion about this. There was a meeting last week at the White House about that, actually. So won't get ahead of him, but he has said there are several things he wants. Payroll tax holiday was one of them because that directly advantages low-income workers. Several other things that he would like to see in the package. Won't get ahead of him, but he's certainly still open to a Phase 4. But it can't be, as he's noted, just state and local bailouts for blue states that have run their states into the ground because of decades of Democrat policies.
So bottom line, we now wait for lawmakers to make some sort of a decision, the White House to respond. The virus has claimed more than 110,000 lives in the U.S. alone. This as COVID-19 cases are on the rise in 20 states and as growing concerns about the spread after hundreds of thousands of people marched against police brutality. Jenna?
All right, CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy, great reporting. Thank you. And here now for our Faith Nation political panel, CBN's chief political analyst, David Brody. David, it's good to see you. Let's start with these angry calls to defund the police departments across the country. Today, we saw the Biden campaign come out in opposition to that. But do you think this could become a Democratic platform?
Yeah, possibly. But I can tell you this. Remember, Joe Biden will be the candidate for Democrats. And I can guarantee you Joe Biden's campaign is going to say to the DNC, hold on for a moment. We're not putting this in the platform. And I think that's going to be the yin and yang here as to how far the Democrats go. Look, I think Joe Biden has two opponents in the general election. He's got Donald Trump. We all know that. But the other opponent, the silent opponent, and maybe not too silent opponent that not as many people are talking about, is the far left of the Democrat Party. Look, defund the police Joe Biden just said, no, I don't want to defund the police. And so clearly he's going to have to he's putting his marker down in the center, in the more in the moderate lane. But that's not going to work for the far left. They're very active. They're very loud. And Biden needs all of them to mobilize against Trump. If he starts to fracture with them, that's a problem for him in November.
Yeah, you think we'll see President Trump pounce on this idea?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, I think the contours have become this. Far left Democrats are saying defund the police, and Donald Trump is saying defend the police. And I got to tell you, if it's between defund and defend, you tell me, Jenna, how moderates and independents are going to go in the suburbs. They're not going to go for defund the police. That's not an ideological statement. That's not a political partisanship statement. That's the facts. I mean, just wait until the polling comes out on this. There is no way that defund the police is going to play in Peoria, if you will, around this country. Absolutely 100% now.
Yeah, well, today, David Biden, he visited George Floyd's family. This, of course, is President Trump. You know, he doubles down as the law and order president. Which response do you think is resonating more with Americans?
Well, right now, I think the consoler-in-chief, something that Joe Biden is playing very well, is resonating. We're seeing that in some of the polling, that Americans want to come together. They're very fractured, and they're very frustrated right now in this country. And Donald Trump is playing into that as the law and order president. Look, I think Donald Trump has a real opportunity here to do something on racial injustice, racism reform, if you will, when it comes to the police department and law enforcement overall. It's been way too much with Donald Trump of law and order, not enough on the compassionate side. And I got to tell you, we know in the Bible, we know law and order is important. We also know compassion is very important in the Bible. And the mix of the two is crucial. Donald Trump right now is lopsided on the law and order part, and he has an opportunity to show compassion and do something legislatively. But we'll see. I'm not quite sure it's going to happen.
Well, David, speaking of polling, a new Wall Street Journal NBC poll finds 80% of Americans feel like the country is spiraling out of control. How do you think this sentiment bodes politically for President Trump?
Well, let me just say, I know that sounds like a high number. Honestly, Jenna, I kind of thought it was a bit low. I mean, don't we pretty much all think the country is spiraling out of control? The good news is we have Jesus, so that's the most important part, and I don't want to bury the lead. Jesus is the lead. But look, I think ultimately what we've seen with these polls is that they haven't necessarily been reliable. Let's remember, within those polls, that CNN poll, Michigan, it shows that Joe Biden is up 14 points in the key state of Michigan. Guess what? In 2016, Hillary Clinton was up 12 points over Trump just a month before the election in Michigan. Let's take these polls with a grain of salt, see how it all plays out.
All right. CBN Chief Political Correspondent David Brody, thank you very much. Happy Monday.
Thanks. You too.
Well, to Capitol Hill, where House and Senate Democrats are pushing to pass sweeping police and criminal justice reforms. Today, they unveiled their legislation. This, of course, as local leaders are dealing with those calls to defund law enforcement. CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson is following this story for us and joins us with more. Abigail?
That's right, Jenna. House and Senate Democrats unveiled this sweeping legislation for police reform as cities like Minneapolis become the first cities to lay out plans to defund the police.
Our commitment is to end our city's toxic relationship with the Minneapolis Police Department, to end policing as we know it.
Their plan would divert funding over the next year from the police department to community-led public safety initiatives.
It is your voice. It is your fight that has gotten us to this point.
New York Mayor Bill de Blasio announced similar plans, although Governor Andrew Cuomo questions that move given recent looting in the Big Apple. Acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf calls the whole idea of defunding the police absurd.
It makes no sense to me. I think it's a very political statement to make, but it does not protect our communities at the end of the day.
House and Senate Democrats are taking action from the federal level, unveiling a sweeping police and criminal justice reform bill.
Today, with the Justice and Policing Act, the Congress is standing with those fighting for justice and taking action.
Democratic lawmakers took a knee before introducing what they say is a long overdue response to racial injustices in law enforcement.
It will combat police brutality by requiring body and dashboard cameras, banning chokeholds, no-knock warrants in drug cases, and end racial profiling.
Around the country Sunday,
I pray that they would meet you today in the mighty name of Jesus, Lord God.
Many Christians joined peaceful prayer walks and rallies like this one in Washington, D.C.
We ask, Father God, in the mighty name of Jesus, that the people are watching. They kneel down too, because we know at the name of Jesus, every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that Jesus is Lord.
Republican Senator Mitt Romney joined the crowd of Christians yesterday marching and praying in Washington, D.C., saying he was there because he wants people to know that he believes Black Lives Matter. While another Republican Senator, Tim Scott, unveiled his own legislation that he reintroduced from 2015 that calls for his own police reform. Back to you, Jenna.
All right, Capitol Hill correspondent Abigail Robertson, thank you. And here with us now for more is Pastor Dean Nelson, President and CEO of the Douglas Leadership Institute and Chairman of the Frederick Douglass Foundation. Dean, thank you so much for being with us. Good to have you today. What's your take on this movement to defund law enforcement, and how do you think that fits into criminal justice reform?
Sure. Well, I think that the whole idea of defunding these police departments is a radical idea. I don't think that it should gain very much traction. I think it's a bad political idea, and I don't think that it'll do anything for the people who need to be protected in some of these urban areas that are often very vulnerable areas.
Yeah. These protests have exposed radical disparities in our nation. Why, in your opinion, have these disparities in America been so persistent for so long?
Well, a lot of people are talking about disparities, and, there are some disparities, but I think that we need to separate some of these issues. There are racial issues within our country and our culture. There are some racial inequities that we can deal with. But when it comes to, police brutality, I think that, all Americans who watched that video with George Floyd should be shocked. And I think our hearts go out to his family and to others who have been victimized in that way. I do believe that there's a way that particularly the Christian community can come together and offer some common sense, suggestions to remedy the problem. I mean, one of those would be, de-escalation type training that many law enforcement officers need to have. In talking to some law enforcement officers just recently, they were also lamenting the challenges that they experience with, public unions in terms of these police in these cities with police, because many times these unions are protecting, bad cops and sometimes creating a bad culture. So I think that there are some things that can be done that would also include ideas of community policing, where people are really better engaged with those that are in their community. Certainly, if you have a relationship with the folks in your community, it's harder to look at them not as being human. So anyway, I believe that there are some good suggestions that can come forward, but some of the things that we're hearing from the radical left are not going to do anything to help those in urban communities when it comes to protecting them, which is the first responsibility for government.
In your opinion, is there an ongoing human dignity crisis underlying all of these topics we're talking about?
Without a doubt, that whole idea of, Imago Dei, every one of us, created in the image and likeness of God. I believe that there are some systemic challenges that we see within our culture. We're encouraging Christians from across denominational lines, from across ethnic lines to, reaffirm, the dignity of all human beings, whether it's the, innocent preborn child in its mother's womb, or whether it's a man who is, crying, for his last breath. I think that it is important for all of us to reaffirm that idea of human dignity, and certainly racism is an attack against human dignity.
All right, Pastor Dean Nelson, President and CEO of the Douglas Leadership Institute. It's good to see you. Thank you for your insights today.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
Well, it's time for listening and understanding. Coming up, we take you inside the Vice President's listening session with Black church leaders.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Welcome back. Well, tonight we are waiting to see results from a meeting between Vice President Mike Pence and leaders at a high-profile black church in Maryland. It's all about hearing their perspective on how to move the country forward. CBN News national security correspondent Eric Phillips joins us with more. Eric?
Jenna, if the Trump administration wanted to get a true sense, they picked the right crowd. Vice President Pence heard plenty during this no-holds-barred session sparked by challenges gripping our nation right now, many of them rooted in inequality.
I think that minorities need to hear that they're valued, that the lives of people really matter.
Vice President Mike Pence listened as he visited Hope Christian Church, a mostly black evangelical church in Beltsville, Maryland.
My prayer is that we, as a nation, have ears to hear, to listen to one another, and open hearts.
Leaders there spoke out on a variety of subjects, including the recent riots growing out of protests that followed the police-related death of George Floyd.
The looting, unacceptable. It's illegal. But what's happening is the abuse that they have been taking is illegal, right? And so they're saying my rights and the law is not protecting me. So why should I abide by yours?
Another major topic, the pervasive concern for black parents, already simmering after the shooting death of jogger Ahmaud Arbery. Derek McCoy said he has 2 sons, about Arbery's age.
You can't go everywhere. Don't go running around by yourself. Make sure you check in and make sure that you come home, son. Because as a dad, I'm concerned to make sure they come home.
Bishop Harry Jackson pastors Hope Christian Church. He and I spoke on Faith Nation just days before the meeting.
Someone's got to speak, in a sense, in the name of God to the heart of all our minorities.
The vice president said the administration sees the inequities and is establishing economic opportunity zones, providing better choices for those in inner city education, and supporting black colleges to help level the playing field.
It will not be enough just for us to heal our economy. We've got to heal that which divides.
A slight difference in tone from what the president said Friday in the Rose Garden when asked what his plan is to address systematic racism.
Our country is so strong, and that's what my plan is. We're going to have the strongest economy in the world. We almost are there now.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it. And sometimes we got to take a step back and figure out how we say things and the tone of where it comes from. And I think right now we're in a place where America is listening, and we have to have the right tone.
And here's an interesting tidbit. During a press conference today, the White House press secretary was asked if President Trump believes there is systemic racism in police departments. She said no. that he believes there are instances of racism, but that by and large, police officers are good people. Jenna.
All right, Eric, thank you. Up next, COVID-19 and a vaccine. Why it may involve a radio frequency ID chip. You're watching CBN's Faith Nation.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to cbnnewschannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
We keep hearing reports of progress on a coronavirus vaccine and that one could be ready as early as this year. But it could look different than what we might normally expect. And yes, include a radio frequency ID chip. CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson explains.
People who get a coronavirus vaccine may notice it looks a lot like their eye drops. They might also see an RFID chip on the package.
The U.S. government has contracted Abiject Systems of America to make 100 million pre-filled syringes to quickly distribute a coronavirus vaccine. It would use a high-speed blow-fill-seal technology used in pre-filled single-use eye drops.
There are eyedropper facilities in the U.S., not many, but a few, that we are going to upgrade so they can handle vaccines. Then what will happen is those facilities will make the containers right here that will hold the vaccine. We will add a needle hub to them, and voila, you have a pre-filled syringe that's ready to use.
There's also space on each syringe for an optional radio frequency identification chip containing a unique serial number for each dose. It would not be injected or touch the patient. The chip would be scanned by healthcare workers in order to better track overall vaccine information.
It is designed so that there is no counterfeiting. It's designed so that we'll know exactly that the right dose hasn't expired. However, that chip only refers to the dose. There's no personal information, no patient information. It's simply like a barcode, only we know instantaneously where and when that dose has been used. That also helps public health officials know when there are outbreaks, have we vaccinated enough people in those areas?
The pre-filled syringes will add to the limited number of traditionally manufactured vaccine supplies, such as specialized equipment to fill glass jars, stoppers, needles, and syringes.
People are worried about, do we have enough medical glass to be able to put all of these doses of the vaccine into vials so that they can be administered? And that's a serious issue to think about right now, even as we are anticipating, if all goes well, that such vaccines may be available in millions of doses as soon as this fall.
The Department of Defense says once the vaccines are made, they'll be delivered to healthcare providers nationwide with the speed and efficiency of the U.S. military. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Thanks, Lori. Still ahead, remembering D-Day 76 years later. This is Faith Nation on the CBN News Channel.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
And finally tonight, remembering D-Day 76 years ago. While the pandemic prevented most veterans from flying in this weekend, a small crowd still watched the French fighter jet fly over that left a trail of national colors. One lone U.S. veteran did make the trip, though, and stood to salute his fellow servicemen. 95-year-old Charles Norman Shea paid his respects during a wreath-laying ceremony at Omaha Beach, where he landed on D-Day. Some 9,000 U.S. troops are buried at the American Cemetery in Normandy, France. And we will leave it on that note this Monday. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you right back here again tomorrow. Have a great evening.